Hi, this is just another one in the series of the senses. This one's on vision. So, what is my purpose of doing a podcast on vision? I think it's just because it's something I'm interested in, and I've been putting out these podcasts just actually as part of them is to do with the passing on of information. When I am treating people and working with people, and even when I'm teaching people, there's never enough time to talk about what you want to do. Like, for example, if I was going to teach someone a process of meditation or calming or working with anxiety or something like that, there is so much to talk about with regards to understanding it properly and understanding the physiological dynamic of that, then looking at ways to tackle that in self-care, that I don't even bother, because it will take me a 3-hour course to even begin to talk about that kind of thing. So hence I'm going to do some audio books on a variety of subjects, and I'm also going to do this Dynamics of Stillness book, and also I'm doing these little podcasts as just little introductions, for example, because there's so much information, there's so many very interesting subjects that we can talk about. So anyway, I'm going to talk about vision a little bit here. I'm not going to talk about it. This is a very complicated organ, and the actual detail of the development of vision and the function of vision is incredibly complex, and I'm not going to bore everybody with a lot of heavy anatomy, functional anatomy and physiology and developmental embryology. We're just going to talk about the basics. Okay, so really the eye is, from a brain point of view, the most important sensory organ, because it takes up much bigger space in the brain than all the other sense organs put together. It is our biggest connection and our clearest connection to the outside world. So when our eyes open, like a firstborn baby, it's like dawn. We are opening ourselves, our physiology, our brain, to light. So this is our strongest sense in connecting with the world and also interpreting our surroundings. But actually, the eye really works like a camera. It just takes in light. It's actually our brain, and the higher centers especially, that interpret these signals of light and give them context, emotion, and understand them. But actually, a lot of the time we walk around, this is a part of the reason why I'm talking about this, is we tend to walk around with our eyes closed to the beauty and the detail of the world around us. Anyway, we'll talk about that more later. When I'm teaching osteopathy to students, graduate osteopaths, I talk about the eye. When you put your hands on somebody's eye with their eyelids closed as a practitioner, that is your direct access to the brain. So you're feeling the brain, because actually from the retina backwards, that is the brain. So actually putting our hands on the disc of the eye gives us a direct connection into the brain, so we can feel the brain through the eye. So it's quite an important thing from our point of view. There's a lot of detail that we can actually do with regards to looking at eye function. I treat a lot of eye dysfunctions as well. Vision is pretty primitive at birth. A baby, if you look at a baby, they can't focus very well. They see about sort of 7-8 inches in front of them. It's a kind of fuzzy 2-dimensional world. Often babies look at this place which is just above and behind me when they're looking at me, and I always used to think that what are they looking at on my shoulder, but I think it's actually because of their vision isn't quite wired up yet. But the brain wires up the visual synapses very, very quickly. So by 6 months old, pretty much all of our primary visual abilities in place are depth, acuity, colour, and coordinated eye movement. And as I said, vision takes up much more processing space in the brain than all the other senses put together. So you have this light receptacle, the sphere of the eye, and at the back of it is the retina, which is part of the brain, and in it there are photoreceptors which capture each capture a single light particle called a photon. There's 2 different types of photoreceptors, which I'm sure you've heard about, rods and cones. Rods are particularly sensitive to light. They're important in low light. Cones deal with the colour and acute vision. So they're packed into the central fovea and the macula of the eye. So very precise colour and acuity of vision. Anyway, these wire up in a quite complicated way into the brain, which I'm not going to talk about. It's too complex. But the brain actually starts to develop very, very early, day 22, which is of an embryo, very, very early. And this goes through a very interesting, again, it's multi-layered with different germ layers and how it forms a placode and a pit. And then what's a lovely thing is the eyes start on a very young embryo laterally, and actually they're pulled centrally, they're anchored centrally. So as the brain grows, the eyes get pulled together and medially. And what's also very interesting is that as it's dragged medially, the eyelids get dragged together and they fuse. So the eyelids start open and then they fuse. And then the eyeball grows enough to drive them open again. And this is called a growth blink. And it's very interesting for me because embryology is very important in my work as an osteopath, because you're trying to feel the remnants of the embryonic forces. There's a field of functional movement that you're trying to feel, and when you tune into that and start feeling that motion, it's incredibly helpful in trying to restore function in dysfunctional areas. That's a really important part of the kind of work we do. So when I'm teaching osteopathy and functional osteopathy, I teach a lot of embryology always. So what's very interesting embryologically is every human action, every movement, for example, of the eyes or of the nose or of the mouth or of the limbs, actually starts, or actually of breathing or of swallowing, everything actually starts as a growth function. So, for example, this blink, this opening, closing of the eyes happens embryologically over a period of weeks, but actually it's how the body learns to do it later on. So that's a very kind of interesting part of the development of vision. So, I mean, you've got 125 million rods which are deciphering this dimness, and they report actually back to the brain in black and white. And you've got 7 million of these cones which examine this bright colour, blue, red and green sensors. Now, let's see what we want to talk about, which is not too complicated. Just one thing I wanted to talk about when you're treating children is if there is some sort of dysfunction of the eye, called like a strabismus or a nystagmus. A strabismus is the eyes are not properly aligned, and that can be due to a tethering of one of the nerves to the muscles of the eye, which is actually by some of the dura behind the eye, which actually is sometimes treatable with what we do. But if the eyes aren't properly aligned, this really can go on and affect the development of the vision, because the brain is wiring up in a certain way. So that's why we have to try and sort these things out as quickly as possible, because it actually can cause more difficulties later. Very important. When we are about 2 months old, we start to gain face recognition. Actually, sometimes actually a little bit more than that, a little bit earlier than that. But interestingly, about 5% of babies are born with some kind of visual disturbance, and as I said, that's very important in terms of developmental function and wiring up the brain. Now, I just want to talk about myopia, nearsightedness, which is a kind of refractive error, which a lot of people have. Actually, I think it's about 25% of the population of children who are from about 8 to 12 years old. What tends to happen with this is when the child is going through quite a fast growth spurt, I think, this is my own personal view, in my opinion, either the eyeball is either too long or the cornea is too curled. If the eyeball is too long, I think it can be dragged by the strong fascial dura which are behind it and pulled into this dural tension. This whole shape of the space around the orbit, all these different seven bones that make up the orbit, everything's growing and functioning together. And, it's very important to get the function of these eye bones and the dural, leather-like tetherings of the back of the eye are very important to get in balance. So much we could spend a week talking about the eye, but I think that vision and eye function are two different things. Vision, what we choose to see, as opposed to what we actually see, and how we learn to see, and what we choose to focus our vision on is nothing to do with our eyes. It's to do with where our mind is and where our thinking is. And it's very important to actually play with that, where our awareness of our sense of vision is and what we do with it. Anyway, I'll talk about that another time. I talk about that actually more in my book when we talk about the detail of working with our senses. And I love the idea that the Taoists, when they're doing meditation, roll in their vision. They pull their senses in, so they close off their vision, which actually allows them to find a point of stillness quicker, because our vision, especially in this day and age, how much visual overstimulation do we actually encounter on a day-to-day level? If you're walking through a city, advertising, one eye's on our mobile phone, the other eye is having a conversation or whatever, part of our vision is doing this, our peripheral vision is doing, our focus is doing one thing, but we're also taking in our environment. We're walking around with one eye on the mobile, trying to, using our peripheral vision to make sure we don't bump into somebody else. We're doing a lot. So our brain is basically taking in a ton of information at once, a ton, and it will overload. If you open up your vision and you look and take in everything, I'm sitting here at my desk, and if I look at everything on my desk, it's overwhelming. There's too much on it, and it's not that much junk. But it's too much. So we focus what we want to see, and it's like we actually put different glasses on, a little lens to focus where we want our attention. So our attention is actually very much more important than our vision. And when we're working in nature, when we open our awareness in nature to the horizon and what's between where we are and the horizon, it can be hugely opening and expanding for the nervous system. So what I'm trying to do also in this work with the book is to deload our sensorium, which is overwhelmed, overloaded, and consequently it's shut down. So actually we've got these massive blocks to life. So you can walk past. It's fascinating the amount of people who come into my practice room. And they say they've been treated for 10 years, say, and suddenly they'll come and say, "Is that a new painting on the wall?" Or, "Have you done something with?" And I say, "No, it's been the same. You just haven't seen it before." And this happens pretty much, I'd say, a couple of 2-3 times a week. If someone comes in and says, "Have you changed something?" And it's interesting. I think it's a response to their treatment. So their senses are opening up or changing, and they have a different perception. so they pick up different things that are happening within the space. Anyway, I'll pick this up another time. We can talk about it forever. Stay warm. It's still cold out there. Okay, best wishes.